Hello, everyone. Welcome to another captivating episode of Keeping It Real by Housing.com. On July 23rd, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman, while tabling the budget for 2024-25 in the Lok Sabha, announced the rupees 2.2 lakh crore government's assistance to boost development of affordable homes in urban areas, a segment that has been struggling for years. The government defined benchmark for affordable housing in urban areas is pegged at rupees 45 lakh unit for each unit. Sitharaman said, under the second installment of the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana Urban, or the PMAY-U as it is called, 1 crore new homes will be built to support the needs of the poor and the mid-income households. Amid the sluggish growth of affordable homes, high-end housing topped both new launches and sales in April-June quarter, according to a report by the online property brokerage firm PropTiger.com. Data shows that 43% of new launches cater to the high-end category, which refers to houses priced at 1 crore rupees and above in the quarter that ended on June 30. High-end housing also accounted for 38% of sales during this period. The report covered 8 prime residential markets in the country, namely Ahmedabad, Bengaluru, Chennai, Hyderabad, Kolkata, the Delhi NCR region, and the MMR, the Mumbai metropolitan region as it is called, and Pune, of course. Only 15% units in new supply was in the affordable housing category. Despite a lower supply, the quarterly sales at 25% was still considerably higher, the report stated. To help us understand these trends, we have with us Vikas Wadhawan, CFO REA India and business at PropTiger.com. Hello and a warm welcome, Vikas. Delighted to have you on the show.
Hello, everyone. A warm welcome to the show and looking forward to an exciting discussion, Gaurav.
Vikas, the first budget of the new government shows a strong commitment to promoting affordable housing. They've increased the funds or the allotment to PMAY and have urged state governments to reduce stamp duties on affordable homes. However, if you look at it from the fence of uh, the industry is still pushing for changes in the definition of affordable housing because everything has become costlier because you have to adjust it to inflation after all, isn't it? And also seeking additional tax rebates. From your perspective, how do you see these initiatives impacting both consumers and also investors? We have noticed a mixed reaction from investors, especially with the new taxes on long-term capital gains being, first set at 20%, then there was a 12.5% thing, and then again, there are now two options available to buyers. What's your take on this, Vikas?
Sure, Gaurav. I think there are at least two, three different questions combined in this one single question. So let me try and answer all of them one by one. So first of all, I think Government of India's continued focus on infrastructure and urban development is a positive sign for real estate sector, and especially for tier two and tier three cities. This goes well with other schemes of Government of India to promote Make in India, production link incentive, and so on and so forth, which will create jobs and provide required boost to the economy, which means further boost to the overall real estate sector. So that is a positive move. You're talking about Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana. Allocation is also a good move and will definitely help drive the housing for all, which is a big goal for this government, while we are already behind in terms of achieving that goal. But nonetheless, there is a concerted effort in providing housing to everyone in India. So that is again a positive move. But this may not have a significant impact on the real estate sector, so to speak, because while you're talking about allocation, and Nirmala Sitharaman also talked about allocation to urban PMYA scheme, but we've seen in the past this has very little impact in real estate sector, and most of the allocation even in the past has gone in the rural housing, and very little allocation has gone in the urban housing sector. So I'm not sure if this will help drive further strength to the real estate market as a whole. Coming back to affordable housing and push for lower stamp duty from the state government, this definitely is a welcome move, but we've seen even in the past, the needle has not moved much when we've talked about rationalizing taxes on real estate, whether bringing it under GST or solving it through some other mechanism. That has not worked out. I'm not sure how much state governments will pay attention to it, but that definitely shows the positive intent of the government. I think what is important in today's scenario, stamp duty or tax concession will only help move the needle in affordable housing, provided the definition of affordable housing is corrected. The definition which we are looking at for affordable housing is almost 5 or 6 years old, if I'm not mistaken. The cost of building a house, the cost of the land has gone significantly up, right? And especially in urban centers, uh, it is almost impossible to build house at that price range, and that is what is reflected in the new launches in our report as well, where you've highlighted that only 15% launches are happening in that particular segment, right? I think the government need to create an index which takes care of tier 1, tier 2, and even in other cities there needs to be a cost index or cost of living index, basis which the cost of an affordable housing or the definition of an affordable housing should be decided, and according to that the benefits should be extended to the buyers in that particular segment. uh, Coming back to the last and important question on indexation, there is a lot of noise about it. But my personal view, this will not have significant impact on real estate sector, whether it is the end user or it is the investor. Because when you're buying a home as an end user, you're not looking at selling that home at that point in time. Your decision is dependent on, is this house in the right locality, which is closer to my office? Can my kids communicate between house and the school easily? Do I have access to healthcare facilities for my aging parents? These are the criteria which are going in my mind when I'm buying a house to stay there. And I'm not thinking about, if I sell that house 10 years down the line, what will happen to my taxation. And more often than not, when I sell my primary house, I end up buying another house, which means all the capital gains will be deployed in buying a new house and hence no taxation. So it will not impact the end users. Even if we talk about investors, I do not think it will going to have a significant impact, because typically investor, when they invest into real estate, their cycle is anywhere between 3 to 5 years from an investment perspective. And if you are selling the property within 3 to 5 years with indexation in the past at 20% or without indexation in the current regime at 12.5% is either neutral or beneficial for the sellers, keeping in mind the inflation rate. So I do not see that impacting the overall real estate sector. There are noises, but it'll just settle down over a period of time.
Indeed, and that's a great point because you touched upon the definition of the need to change the definition of affordable housing, and this definition is now a few years old. You also touched upon why it's important to come out with a very robust, rigorous cost of living index to actually come out with a very well defined benchmark of affordable housing. But that, that it's a good way to segue into a it's a good point to segue into a more interesting trend, which is we have noticed a significant surge in demand for high end housing over the past couple of years. For example, a recent report from PropTiger.com highlighted that 43% of all new launches in India's 8 prime residential markets during April to June this year were priced at above more than rupees 1 crore. Housing units within this price range also accounted for 38% of quarterly sales. What do you think is driving this shift towards luxury homes, and how does this trend differ from what we are seeing in the affordable housing segment, Vikas?
Sure, Gaurav. So as I mentioned earlier, I think there is a need to revisit the definition of affordable housing. I think I also need to give feedback to my team where we should start correcting our definition of luxury homes, because we know in big cities you can't buy a luxury home at one
Right,
crore. I mean, in the city where I'm sitting right now, I don't remember if there was any launch which has happened in the last 12 months, which is anything less than 2.5 crore rupees in
right,
Gurgaon, right?
right.
Uh, I think the urban centers or tier one cities are getting more and more expensive because of the cost of the land, because of the cost of the construction, the cost of compliance has gone up, which is making building a house or a quality house more and more expensive in these cities, right? So that's one. Second, what is driving a lot of demand towards this high-end houses, so-called 1 crore and above. Frankly, I think there are two, three factors which we've talked in the past as well. First and the foremost, post-COVID, all of us realized that we need a house which is closer to a lot of amenities, and we have those. We have access to gymnasium. We have a nice park close to our house. We should have a swimming pool so that my kids can go and do swimming and do some sporting activity and so on and so forth, easily accessible, so that even if we once again go into a lockdown situation, we should have access to these basic
Mm,
amenities. So that is one thing which has increased the cost of housing,
mm,
or increased our aspiration of the kind of house we want to live in. And second, the aspirations are also increasing, where people want better living. People want to stay in condominiums. People want to stay in places where you have access to good schools, where you have a good club, a good shopping area nearby, and so on and so forth, which means you are more often than not buying in the heart of the urban centers, which is obviously has to be expensive. And some example I want to quote: all the two important signals which I talked about, whether it is you need a house with better amenities or your aspirations are improving. Look at Gurgaon. Who are the people, or maybe Noida? Who are the people who are buying in Gurgaon and Noida? It's all people who are migrating from Delhi and coming to these new suburbs
mm,
and getting into better housing society, because Delhi is developed 50 years back or 60 years back. The housing does not have access to, large part of Delhi does not have access to good amenities and so on and so forth. And even as basic as even the parking is not there in Delhi, in large part of Delhi, right? So these are the people who are selling their houses in Delhi and moving to the suburbs of Delhi in Gurgaon or Noida, depending on their preferences and affordability.
mm.
So that clearly shows that people's aspirations are increasing, right? So these are the factors which are driving this trend of people asking for more and more expensive homes.
Absolutely. Now brings me to the next big question. That's on everyone's mind. And uh, do you think, and it's about the demand for these high-end homes? And you touched upon a very important point where people are actually moving in from Delhi to Gurgaon and Noida because they're demanding a certain quality of living, which is now beginning to get diminished in many localities of Delhi. Because you pointed out about the parking issue too, where even parking is a big problem now. Of course, if car was a luxury 20 years ago, today car is an essential. So yesterday's aspirationals have become as essentials, and we need to factor that in completely. So that brings me to the last question, and it's an important one from my point of view: is that do you think this demand for high-end houses is going to cool off in the next few quarters, or do you think actually the upcoming festive season is could end up giving it an even further boost with rising incomes, a strong economy, and India being a key destination for investments? Do you see this trend continuing in the housing segment? What's your view, Vikas?
So, see, real estate cycles are typically very long.
Mm,
We've seen a very, very long down cycle in the past few years, and I am of the view that we're going to see a long up cycle now in real estate sector, and there are few reasons behind that. the demand of housing may not be as robust as what we may have seen in the last few quarters, because there was definitely a lot of pent up demand because of COVID and because of down cycle and so on and so forth. Even if we remove that element for the time being, for the purpose of this discussion, as I said, there is a very, very large segment of people who are moving out of old style housing. They want to move into the new style housing,
Mhm.
right? That is a very big demand, which will continue to drive demand in real estate sector, at least for the foreseeable future.
Mhm.
The income levels are growing, economy is growing, people are migrating from quote unquote tier 3 cities to tier 2 or tier 1 cities, or tier 2 cities to tier 1 city, which will continue to drive demand because our cities are becoming bigger and bigger, commercial activities are growing, our income levels are improving. That will further boost the demand in real estate sector. And third, another important factor, uh, are family structure is changing very rapidly in India, right? Earlier, we used to stay in joint families very often. 20 years back, or maybe 25, 30 years back, very often the family structure was you're staying with your parent and your maybe sibling in the same house even after marriage. But now, forget about staying with the sibling. More often than not, you're not even staying with your parents. So family structures are changing, which means you need more and more dwelling units for people to accommodate, right? So these are few factors which will continue to drive demand, and keeping in mind the kind of economic aspiration we have for India, and I'm pretty bullish about it that yes, we will achieve those aspirations maybe 1 year here and there. I don't see any signal of the demand in real estate cooling off, at least for the foreseeable future.
Absolutely, Vikas. It's always such a delight to speak to you and have you on the show. Thank you so much for taking the time out and dropping by to have this conversation with us, Vikas.
Likewise, Gaurav, thank you. Wonderful talking to you.
So that's it from us for this episode. We shall be back again with a fresh episode of Keeping It Real by Housing.com with information and insights on the real estate industry. Whether you're a pro or a beginner, we are here to keep you informed and entertained in the world of Indian real estate. This is Keeping It Real by Housing.com, where we keep it real always. You can catch the episode on Housing.com, on the Housing.com app, on the YouTube channel of Housing.com, on Earshot.in, Spotify.com, Apple Podcasts, YT Music, that is YouTube Music, Ghana.com, and Geo7, among others. Take care and stay safe.